Okay, you got it.
And it's 7:07. I'll call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. First up on the agenda is roll call and seating of alternates. I see Ann Cremay in attendance, Steve Nelson, Leanne Hutchinson, myself, Scott Person is absent. And so next up on, well, we also have alternates Susan England and Ann Blanchard present. Next up in the rotation to be seated is Susan England. So Susan, you'll be seated as a commission member for tonight's meeting.
Like you can't see it.
Okay.
Jim, can you put yourself on mute while you're talking there?
Okay.
Or Eric, do you have the power to mute him until he gets
Okay.
done talking there?
Okay.
That works, okay. Next up are additions or changes to the agenda. And I have none. Does anybody else have any additions or changes to the agenda to discuss? I hear none, so we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, public speak. And anybody from the public have any comments that they would like to make before we start this evening? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move down to old business. And the first item up on the agenda is the restoration of the permitted gravel pit on Route 6. And at this point, we have nobody here to address that issue with us. And so I'm going to defer that item for the moment. I have nothing to update item 5B on Rosewood Acres. And so we'll go on to item 5C, the response to the letter from Jerry Cremay. And Eric, if you could allow me to share my screen.
Okay, you should be able to.
At the last meeting, we discussed the letter from the Board of Education Chairman Jerry Cremay about some concerns that the board had with respect to the proposed senior community center project. I think I sent this letter out to all the commission members. Steve, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So I think it certainly doesn't say much other than the fact that the chairman of the Community Senior Center Building Committee forwarded the concerns to the engineer who's managing the project for the town of Andover. We don't have a application at this point, and so we thought that was the appropriate action to take. But at this point, I'll make a motion to approve the draft letter to the Board of Education from the Zoning Enforcement Officer and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second,
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any comments on the letter? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The motion passes 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Mark Brantz, Commission Counsel, just one thing for Mr. Hallisey. Do not publish a legal notice of that vote. It is not an appealable decision. And I don't want to open an appeal option for it. That the vote you just took is in the way of guidance for concerning communication and does not need a legal notice.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Branch.
Certainly.
Next, we're going to move down to new business and so let's see.
Jed, it looks like Jim is back. Do you want
Yep.
to check on the gravel pit situation?
Jim, what did you, and you're on mute, Jim. Yeah, Jim, you're still on mute.
Okay, I spoke to Chris Bell.
Yep,
He didn't seem to recall the meeting, but he will be on in a few minutes. So I told him we would, when he gets on, we would bring up his item or as soon as possible.
okay. Now, so we are into new business at this point, and I would like to start with item 6C, the request for filing extension in Eric, if you can just run us through what the purpose of your request is, just so that all the commission members understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah, sure. So back at the August meeting, I presented modifications to what was a subdivision plan and a special permit application, because Eversource was was forcing me to move utilities to the other side of the property. That had a much greater impact than the original plan. So what they required of me was in order to have their engineer approve the plan, the original utilities plan was to actually have a driveway come from the other side of our property. That matter, the commission was kind enough to vote on that matter at that meeting and approved with the conditions, including filing of Mylars and easements. It has been, I believe it's going to be 90 days if it hasn't already passed within the last day or two, but I submitted a letter requesting an extension just because I've been, no matter how much I seem to try to email or leave voicemails with the Eversource engineer, I haven't gotten contact from them, which has caused delays. And then my engineer has also required more time than I was thinking he would to get the plans modified and the information that my attorney needs to draft up easements and communicate with Eversource. I am at the point where I have Mylars right here, in fact, and my attorney is in possession of the information that he needs. What's outstanding, I think, is just my attorney, by the way, is Stan Falkenstein. He has a little more work drafting agreements, and then I believe he still needs to get in touch with his person at his counterpart at Eversource to get the ball rolling there. But I think the big log jam for me is kind of broken, and I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I'll have all that sorted out and I could file everything with the clerk.
So would there need to be any changes made to the Mylars that you have now once the easement gets approved, or is that all, the easement approval will put it in compliance with the Mylars that you currently have in hand?
That's correct. Yeah, I won't need new Mylars. These are final. It's just a matter of getting a driveway easement updated with a new area that's you know, that my property, actually rather my neighbor's property is going to require us to like go through. So I wouldn't need any changes to the Mylars. I think they're final copies.
Okay. Agent Hallisey, I know you and I had talked about the possibility of making a motion to change the previous conditions of approval to support filing the Mylars without,
Yes, I thought as an alternative to the extension of the filing request, just simply change the conditions to require that the easements be filed prior to the issuance of a building permits.
I would think,
No.
No,
Yeah, for the record, Mark Branch, we can't do that. Once that Mylar is filed on the land records, whatever easements it depicts, whatever it shows is it. And that's very, very risky. I've seen that happen before, and it leads to bad things. And the extension of time is perfectly reasonable request, routinely granted. Mr. And I won't try to pronounce your last name, but has certainly provided a good explanation for why he may not meet the 90-day filing requirement. But when we have all the ducks together, and by the way, it does not require a commission meeting to endorse that Mylar. The chairman can do that any old time. So if he gets Eversource squared away in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, he does not have to wait for the next commission meeting. The Mylars can be endorsed at any time.
thank you.
okay, so with that in mind, I'll make a motion to approve a 90-day extension for filing of the Mylars on the Pine Ridge subdivision.
Second,
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The motion to extend the filing deadline for 90 days is approved. And I think that's all you wanted from us tonight, Eric?
Yes, that is it. I
Okay.
do see the note in the chat. Is that from Eric about the Eversource rep?
Yes, that is. So if you do have problems with it and you can't get it through, let me know and I'll rattle our Eversource rep to work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Falkenstein knows me well, so when he has his documents for my review, we can work that out. He knows where to find me.
Okay. Thank you very much, all.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to work back to item 6B. Receive application and set public hearing for various amendments to section 5, Andover rules of design, and section 24 definitions of the Andover zoning regulations. So it's allowed municipal land uses in the ARD subject to special permit. I think I still got share screen permission. Is that correct, Eric? Okay, so before I jump over to the proposed changes, I sent out, as I recall, I sent out a lot of things to the commission within the last month this time. But I think you saw the I forget what it's called, the petition to change the regulations, I think it is. So as we were working through the issues of the community center, we discovered that that our regulations as currently
Go to the
existing.
Planning zone, I tried the same way. But if you go to the calendar that.
Thank you, Eric. The current regulations didn't support putting in a community/senior center. And so we thought that maybe we should adjust the regulations to allow that. And okay, so this is my proposed change to section 5. And going back, Eric with Attorney Branch made several recommendations for changes, both in section 5, the ARD, section 7, the Lake District, section 8. I think it was either the business district in section 24. I was a little concerned with all the things going on about doing all those changes right now, but I certainly wanted to amend the regulations as soon as we possibly could to facilitate having the ability to put a community center in the ARD, which is where the town hall is located, if we so chose to do that. And so this is the sections that Attorney Branch recommended that we change. We deleted public parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields from here. One of the things that Attorney Branch recommended, and I think it has a lot of merit to it, was we should be very careful in what are the items that we have that you can do in a district without a special permit. You know, there was a bunch of surprise that came up with a lot of people when the Dollar General came to town, that we didn't need to hold a public hearing for that and do the special permit with that all they had to do was comply with our regulations and a site plan review. And so one of the lessons, well, that recommendation that Attorney Branch made, plus the experience of Dollar General, and I guess the other one that comes to mind is that when we were looking at Scott Beebe's kennel application, you know, that we were able to put through because you could read the regs that a special permit and a public hearing were not required. When I get around to changing that regulation, I will make it so that for any kennel, a public hearing and a special permit is required, because I think that's the right thing to do. So anyhow, that's the basis of what we've got here. And so up in the permitted uses, we eliminated public parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields. Down in the special permit, we crossed out schools and put in municipal land uses. We changed 5A02 to include houses of worship and cemeteries, houses of worship in the place of churches and libraries, because that would be included in the municipal land use item. And then down here at the bottom, we took out private recreational areas and we put in the public parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields. And I know, Eric, you asked me a question at one time about why did we eliminate the private recreational areas? Wouldn't we like to have those? And the answer comes back is the way that we define public parks, playgrounds, and athletic fields would encompass any of the items that would be open to the public. And so private recreation areas would probably not be required there. So anyhow, that's those are the changes to section 5 that were recommended by Attorney Brantz and requested by Eric Anderson for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Any questions or comments on any of those changes? Okay, and I do think they were fairly straightforward at that point. So we can't approve those yet. The changes will have to go to a public hearing before we can approve them. And Agent Halsey needs to send those out for some other local municipality review. And I think I forget how many days that review we're required to give, but it ends up being that the first time that we can have a public hearing to vote on the changes would be in our January meeting, which I think is January 21st or January 23rd. It's a week later than normal due to the Martin Luther King holiday. So I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing for January 23rd to discuss the proposed changes to section 5 ARD.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Steve. Eric, did you have a comment? I saw
Just
your
what,
lips moving,
just
didn't hear
remember,
anything.
I was saying, just remember in your legal notice that these amendments affect more than just section 5. I mean, we added a definition, so there's other sections are
Yep,
involved for the
and
legal
and we'll get
notice.
to section 24 specifically
Oh, okay,
in
all
just a
righty.
minute. Yeah.
all right, no problem.
I have no comment other than I just want this expedited to the extent that we can. But I understand we need to notify surrounding municipalities and notify the COG, so it's not going to be overnight.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Jed, in addition to section 24, you also mentioned changes to section 7 and 8 at a later date. Will that be prior to the public hearing?
That will not be. So my goal for the public hearing, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here tonight, is I would like to make these changes which allow the community center, the changes to definitions which support, I think it was municipal land uses and public something or other. We'll get there in a minute. And then the third item that I was going to try and squeeze in there, if we get through that without too much discussion tonight, is the accessory dwelling units. And so, we have opted out of accessory dwelling units in entirety from what was in the Public Act. But the portion that we specifically wanted to opt out of was for the Lake District. I've got some things to discuss that we might want to change with our other regulations and just make sure we're where we want to be on that, because I think that's an important issue for the affordable housing discussion, and we'll go with that. But anyhow, back to the motion. Well, any other discussion?
Good. I have one comment, and I may have missed it. I apologize. I was on the phone with Chris Bell trying to get up to the meeting, but I'm treating this as a zone change amendment to the text. And there's an application. So what I had put on the agenda was to receive the application and set public hearing. So I'm suggesting that you act to receive the application prior to the public hearing.
Okay. So I will modify the motion to include accepting the application and setting the public hearing date for 23 January.
Second,
Thank you, Steve. First, we'll vote on the modification to the motion. Any other discussion on the modification? And I would put that up, but I'm afraid I ran out of space on my computer to put things down. And if I go back to the website here at this point, that might or might not work. And it was pretty straightforward. Eric asked us to take a look at changing these couple of things, and it's online if you care to look at that. But hearing no other discussion, the motion is to modify the initial motion, and I'll call for a vote. Ann?
Aye.
Steve?
aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The modification of the motion passes 5-0-0. And now we go back to the entire motion as modified, which is to receive the application to change the regulations in section 5 and set a public hearing date for 23 January. Any other last minute discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Ann?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes 5-0-0.
Thank you, commission members, for considering this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do you see Chris Bell on?
I do see Chris Bell. I just, since we're in the middle of 6B, I'm going to call up the changes to the definitions and go through those couple of changes, and then we'll get on to the gravel
Sure.
pit. Okay. So we added, here we added a municipal land uses. Yeah. And I think I sent these out to everybody. Is that true? Yeah, okay. One of the
Yeah.
many things I sent you out, so I won't read that. And then we put public buildings, structures or uses which are open to the public, owned by, under the exclusive control of nonprofits, social, compared to municipal land uses. So if it isn't a municipal land uses, it's a public. If it isn't a public, it goes back to being a municipal land use.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Mark Brands, let me just also point out that this, I know that for years we've needed to do a comprehensive revision of Andover, but you also have a definition of something called private recreation areas, private
We do.
recreational areas.
Yep.
But
And it's
that is
showing,
right, and that's there, but that's defined to be an accessory use. So that's why we're adding this new definition, because that could be a principal use.
okay. And just so while we're talking about the definition section here, in a later presentation, I have come up with the definition for the word frontage. We've wrestled with that before. And I was going to include that in this update, and I forgot. And so I still intend to include that. We'll go through discussion, and if we can get agreement on what the definition of frontage is later tonight, I will include that in here before Jim sends it off for the municipality review. And that would be included in our public hearing on January 23rd as well. So with all that in mind, I'll make a motion to receive the application and set a public hearing for section 24 of the definitions, with the public hearing to be held on January 23rd.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion on the definitions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So we've received we have received the application and set the public hearing for 23 January. Thank you, everybody. At this point, I'd like to go back to old business, item 5A, restoration of permitted gravel pit at 517 Route 6. And Chris, I will turn it over to you at this point.
Okay,
You give us, let us know where we stand.
okay, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm sorry, I had forgotten that Jim told me he wanted me at the meeting. I guess I forgot a lot of things when I was in the hospital. I have to tell you, about every 15 seconds, the audio cuts out on me. I can't hear what you're saying for about 15 seconds, then it comes. I can tell when you're talking because your lips are moving, but I hear nothing. All I can do is, if I notice that you're talking and I can't hear you, I'm going to have to say, I can't hear you. The audio cut out. I keep getting warnings that my internet connection is unstable for some reason. Anyway, let me try to be quick about this then.
We can hear you fine, Chris.
Yeah, I know, I think you're going to hear me, but you may be cutting out on me.
Okay,
So I talked to the contractor and the owner today, and I did talk to them also last week. And for some reason, they stopped the grading. They said they had other stuff to do and they weren't sure if they're going to be able to finish it, right away, but they're going to start again tomorrow. I told them to take the high point out and make the low point, because that's basically what they have to do to conform to the plan. And the low point material can be easily spread to the back towards the sloped area, and that needs to be filled a little bit, and then filled towards the access road, which they still need to fill in a little bit more there and stop at the floodplain line as we had on the proposed plan. They should be able to do that within a few days. I don't think that's going to take very long, and I think we can get an inspection on the rough grading as we agreed to do it. I think I can do a video inspection because I know the grade stakes are out there. He can take some laser shots while I'm on a video with him, and then once I'm happy with the grades, we can call Jim Hellesy to come out and we can do a video conference, and I'm sure the grades will be correct by the time we get out there. At that point, I think it's way too late in the season to try to do topsoil and then seed, because I know the seed is not going to take, it'll provide some erosion protection to hay, but I think we should wait for the spring to topsoil and seed, and then we'd be very successful and get a good crop of grass. I mean, right when the grading is done, there's virtually, all the water is going to be going towards the center for a good 75% of the site. And the only thing that will be left is what's along the floodplain, along the access road, which, always went towards the right anyway. And we'll have to just keep and maintain those silt fences that, there is a little bit of a low point in the access road that, it keeps breaking through. And we'll just have to keep monitoring that over the winter to make sure that we don't get too much silt material going past the silt fence. Again, it's just sand. But I would like to finish the grading, do the topsoil in the spring. And I think the contractor agrees, we'd be much more successful. Again, all the drainage is going to go towards the center. So when it's finally completed. And so we'll stay on that to make sure that's finished. After that, I guess if you've got any other comments or thoughts, let's talk. I can hear you.
My first comment is I was disappointed that we didn't get done by the 17th of November after you asked for, and we gave you 2 months to do the restoration.
Well, I was disappointed too. I wanted them to stay on it and they just didn't. And I didn't have any control over that. I thought they were going to finish up and call for an inspection and they didn't. When I found out they never finished, I wasn't too happy about that. And they just never got back out there. And I don't know what to say. I can only pound my fist so much. And the owner was the same way. He was trying to get them out there, but they had other jobs to finish. And I wasn't happy about that at all.
Okay,
So
no,
I
I
don't know what else to
understand
say.
that. The other concern I had was, and it sounds like you had little control over this probably as well, but we agreed when we agreed to the restoration plan that you and Agent Hallisey and the person doing the excavation were going to get together 48 hours prior to actually starting the excavation so that we could make sure that what was going to be done was done in accordance with the plan.
Yeah, and we did have an inspection and everything was, all the hills were taken down except they had a high point in the middle. And we did have an inspection with that and with Jim. And I thought they were going to proceed, but right after that time, it was only a week later that I had my accident and basically I was not really available to stay on top of it. I only, I took Jim's calls. I tried to get things going, but apparently, I don't know, their thoughts were, they said, well, if I'm not there, how are they going to get an inspection anyway? And I guess they just left, which I was not very happy with at all. And they never, even though I tried to get them before the 17th to get out there, it just didn't happen. I don't know what else to say about it. I did the best I could, but I couldn't control them at all. And either could the owner. He was trying to get them out there too. And
Well, with
so
that,
so we're kind of stuck with, it's almost done, but they can finish it, in the next few days and get the low point in, and that's about it, I guess, for now.
Chris, do
because
you know if the erosion and sediment control measures have been restored?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
it was restored last week, actually. That's what the owner told me. He had somebody go out there the day after Jim sent his notice, and I was told they were finished. And I think they're going to have to just try to triple that up because we know where the weak point is, and I think they're just going to have to reinforce it some more to last for the winter. I mean, it's only coming through basically one point. That's where, well, there's more drainage going there now because we have a high point. Once we take the high point out of there, more than 2/3 of that drainage is going to go towards the new low point. So it's going to be reduced quite a bit. Go ahead.
So what is different this time where we have a promise to be done within the next couple of days that's different than the last year?
Well, they weren't intending to get back to do the grading until the end of September, which they did start then. And they were on it for quite a bit for a while. And unfortunately, they just stopped short of the finish line, which I'm sure nobody's happy about. I think it had a lot to do that I just was not able to stay on top of it for the couple weeks I was in a bad part of the hospital. I just wasn't there to get going on it, to keep it.
Nope, I understand that.
But unfortunately, I'm the only one that seems to be pushing on it. The owner does, but he can't get the contractor to go out there as much as he would like to. We're still kind of a victim to a contractor's schedule. So.
Yep, and I think, I've seen people working on excavation over there probably 2 days out of the last 2 months. Maybe I missed 1 or 2, but it certainly hasn't been very much. In the contrast with that to what happened to the Dollar General across the street that went to open for business in about 2 months after they started his incredible. So I don't know if the owner's got the wrong excavator, doing that or whatever.
Well, to be all fair, Mr. Chairman, building a building and starting a business is a money-making operation. This whole operation was a money-losing operation for the owner. He lost a lot of money just getting this done. So unfortunately, everything was going very fine until it just stopped. I mean, they were really close to finishing it, and then I was actually surprised they never put the low point in after I got back to it after my surgery, and I wasn't too happy about it. I thought they were going to finish that up with no problem, but they never went back. And now they're on site, ready to finish it. It's just, I mean, I can't make excuses for the contractor. He just didn't show up. They go on to other priorities and they show up when they want to. Unfortunately, it's for a job like this. It's not a money-making job for him either. He just made a deal with Bill to finish it. And, he got very little material out of it. He was pretty much as a break even. So unfortunately, it's still got to get finished. And I told him today that, it's really important to get that low point in just to get the whole situation stable. And Bill's got to monitor that weak point in the sill fence. That's where all the water goes, not right now, which is kind of where the level spreader was.
Okay, and Chris, you saw the copy of the letter that Mr. Genovese received from Agent Hallisey?
Yes, I did. I saw that.
Okay. So that's the reason we invited Attorney Branch here tonight, is because last time, we got into a similar situation here, and unfortunately, it took the threat of legal action to get the project back on track when we had the first extension authorized, and we looked at what we had done and what we said we were going to do, and they were significantly different. Attorney Branch, I would like the way ahead to be that we give the applicant, for which we have no application currently, I guess, we give the applicant until the end of the month to have the grading properly restored.
I guess you
where
would
it's
call it
got
the
a low
primary
point.
grading.
Yeah, the grading done, and
The audio kicked out. I can't hear anything.
say again, Chris?
You said the
I
audio.
still can't
kicked out
hear
on-
anything. Oh,
Okay, well,
You may
So
want
I-
to turn his video off. It might help with the feed.
that's probably a good idea. Chris, if you turn your video off, that might help your bandwidth.
all right. That's something I wouldn't know. Stop video.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so let us
You
know
just
if
cut out again. I can't hear anything. Now the video's frozen. We can't, everybody's frozen.
okay, then I will have Agent Hallisey brief you tomorrow on what we agreed to tonight. But Attorney Branch, my desire for the way ahead would be to have the site graded in accordance with the restoration plan by the end of this month. That recognizes we've got Thanksgiving coming up at the end of this month here. And at our next meeting in December, we have an updated restoration plan that includes action to put in the topsoil, finish grading and seeding at some point next spring, and whatever further actions it takes to bring it into full compliance with the restoration plan that we were unable to achieve by November 17th.
For the record, Mark Branch, that sounds like a reasonable, very reasonable goal to set. But here's the problem we have. The permit has expired. The applicant has not filed an application to renew the permit or to obtain a new one.
And I can tell you why, Attorney Branch, we're not excavating and taking material off site. We no longer have a gravel pit permit to remove material.
It
mean,
makes
basically,
no
we're
difference whether the
restoring
material is
the
being
site.
removed or not. There is still grading
And
activity
the audio
occurring.
just cut out.
And pursuant to the permit was to be the permit required restoration. The
Right.
commission gave 60 more days to do the restoration, hasn't been done. And I understand why, Mr. Bella, you've explained that. I understand
The audio
your
kicked out again.
situation. But we're in the predicament now where there is no permit.
The audio
And
still
the
kicked
extension
out.
has
I
been,
can't
excuse
hear
me,
anything.
Mr. Bell. Mr. Bell, we are now in a situation where there is no permit. The permit has expired, where the restoration period has expired, and the commission has no request before it or application before it to do anything further. Therefore, but there is a way to solve this, and the way to do that, my recommendation would be that the zoning enforcement officer issue an order that incorporates what you've just said, Mr. Chairman. That incorporates, end of the month to bring the grading into compliance, whatever period in the springtime for loaming, seeding, and so on, immediate repair of ENS, which appears to have already occurred, at least Mr. Bell believes has occurred. That order would then authorize the applicant to proceed without a permit, because it's basically it's a remediation order. That order would be filed in the land records, which I think makes sure that some innocent buyer does not acquire this property without knowing that there is an outstanding violation, which there is, and there will be an outstanding violation until spring at the rate we're going, because you can't see, as Mr. Bell says, you can't seed anymore. Won't take. And I think part of that order should be the posting of a new bond in the amount of the loaming and seeding to be sure that when we inspected that, and I was on the site, Mr. Bell, when we inspected that site, there was questionable as to whether the required 2 inches of loam was even on the site. So part of that order should be the posting of a new bond to assure the grading, loaming, seeding, mulching as required by the regulations. And what that will do is that order, like I said, first of all, it will give authority for the owners to do what it is they're supposed to be doing. It will also assure that we don't get an innocent buyer unaware of the situation. And then lastly, if this does not happen, if our contractor decides to pursue greener pastures once more, then the violation of that order will by itself trigger a $2,500 civil penalty against the owner and lay the groundwork for a civil suit against the owner for injunctive relief. I certainly understand the problem with contractors. They're all busy, but the commission has to have some response to this. And this seems to be the fairest and the most efficient way to handle it.
Any comments from the commission on what we just heard from Attorney Branch?
Jed?
Yes, Leanne.
Yes, I like the idea of going to, but not beyond the end of the month, because I think we need to bear in mind, as has been said, that this is the end of the extension. It's not the beginning of, it's not a request for an extension. It's the end of an extension that was granted, and not much has been done. And it doesn't seem like the owner is very active, and I don't think that having the contractor not be making much money doing this, that could go on indefinitely. It has gone on for quite a while, and not much has been done since the last meeting. So I think it's a good time frame to give them time to do something more, but also not have this go all winter. Can I ask a question of Jim? Mr. Bell, I think, said that the erosion and sedimentation control measures were fixed. I think he said, I hope he can hear me with his cutting in and out, the day after this letter was dated. So, Jim, have you been able to go out there and check on the silt fences?
I was out there today and I thought that the silt fence in the far corner was not supported properly, but I'm gonna go back out. Other than that, it looked good, yes. The silt fence has kind of blown out from the back and it's gotten to the point where it's hard to maintain. So I will take a closer look at that, and it may involve moving it forward or replacing it with hay bales or something of that nature. It seems to have been a struggle to maintain throughout the course of work.
And Mr. Halsworth, again, for the record, Mark Brands, in fashioning your order, that after you do that inspection, we can fine tune that. So if there are things that need to be done with the ENS, that can be part of your order as well, with its own separate deadline.
Okay, just for the record, I will coordinate the springtime seeding with Hank Gruner, who has been very active on this project with respect to turtles. The turtles on site. I believe that's a June issue, so I don't think it's a problem, but I just want to double check.
And Leanne, just to add on to your concern there, or mitigate it, hopefully, Attorney Brantz's recommendation to include a copy of the order in the file for the property, as I understand, Mr. Genovese is anxious to market the property soon, and having that order, if it's not complied with in the file, would hinder anybody's desire to go out and purchase that property at that point. So I think that provides good motivation too.
Okay, well, I think that's helpful, although he doesn't seem to have been too incentivized so far, but hopefully that will help. And if it comes to, with this short time frame, again, it is at the end of an extension that's already been granted, he may just need to come up with somebody else who's more ready to do the work that we need done, and it's been outlined very well.
Exactly. Okay, Attorney Brandt, I'm
Mr.
trying,
Chairman, may I make a comment?
is that Chris?
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes.
I have no audio right now. Hello?
What
You can hear you,
you
Chris.
what you might try doing, Chris, is calling into the phone number.
Well, I can hear him. I can hear Mr. Bell.
Yeah, you can hear me, but that whole, after I stopped speaking, I heard probably about 10% of the conversation. I really don't. I mean, I heard that you want a new bond. I heard a few words. I haven't heard most of the conversation.
No, Jim Hallisey will get a hold of you tomorrow, Chris, and go through everything.
I mean, I apologize for, I don't know what I'm doing with this, but I just like to say, there is, I mean, any erosion that's occurring is basically on his land, and the amount of water that's going to the right is basically less than it was before the site was done. I mean, there's no harm doing to anybody except himself by not getting the project finished. He's not hurting his neighbor. It probably is nice to be if it was all done, I agree. But, at this point, the owner is going to know, what is the problem? It's my site and I'm trying to finish it. And he doesn't understand why the town is so concerned about finishing it when the only harm that's coming to him is just an topsoil site with no grass on. I just wanted to let you know what his feeling was. He would like to get it done as soon as possible, because then he could, get someone to rent it or buy it. So it's not because he doesn't want it to happen, he does, but he's having a hard time getting it done. And that's all.
I understand all that, Chris, and I do think there is some detriment to having the water run down to the east the way it is. I'm not sure that it's great to have all that water running down into the wetlands there. And if we had graded the property as the restoration plan specified, we would have significantly minimized that runoff, minimized that erosion, and minimized the water going into the wetlands. I think those are all
Well,
things
it is wetland.
that does
I mean-
not mean that we want all the water to be running down there.
Hmm.
In fact, that would be rationale for not having the water run down there because it's not soaking into the ground.
Well, it is a type A soil. Most of the water goes into the ground and doesn't run off. But there is runoff. I agree that there's no doubt about it. And I think if he at least controls the silt fences and keeps the sand from going beyond the silt fence, and we should be able to control that over the winter. But I'll note your comments that I did hear and tell him he's got to get this thing done ASAP.
Thank you. And Jim, you'll be able to provide the order to Mr. Genovese, route that through Attorney Branch before you send it to him, just so we can get his cut on what you're sending out.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I'll be in the office all day tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Hutchinson.
this is Catherine Hutchinson. I respectfully request permission to be heard.
Go ahead.
I agree with you. I am, of course, particularly concerned with that runoff. And Mr. Bell's comment that when the work is done, that he's anticipating be done, that 2/3 of the water will be redirected. The restoration plan called for 100% of it to be redirected, not
No,
just
it did
2/3
not.
of it.
It did not. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well-
The water that's in the floodplain, I
Hold,
can't.
stop, Chris. Stop.
I can't
Stop.
do that. Okay.
The way you briefed us on the restoration plan was that the elevation on the east side of the property was going to be higher than the high point elevation on the west side of the property. So if the detention basin filled up, the excess was going to flow down towards the Extra Mart and back towards the Hop River. That was the discussion we had. And so understanding that, I conclude that Ms. Hutchinson's comment is correct. We did agree that the runoff was going to
There's
run
no
down to
audio
the
on
west
my
side of the
side
property.
right now. There's no audio.
Okay, well, and I think we have the input we need from Mr. Bell to decide the course of action. And I don't think at this point there's any further action for the commission until we have Agent Hallisey send out the order. And next month, we'll look forward to seeing the updated restoration plan, and we will vote on that at that point. Any other
I had
comments?
no audio.
Again, this is Catherine Hutchinson.
I
Thank
continue
you
to
for
have
granting
no
me
audio.
permission to speak. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. So any other comments on the gravel pit?
I only have one. To make 100% of the water flow towards the middle, I'd have to fill the access road in the floodplain. I can't do that.
Understand that, and that's not what we're talking about.
Okay. All right, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Mark Branch, what we're talking about is compliance with the approved grading plan.
Correct.
Whatever it shows, that's what it shows.
Yep.
Correct.
Maybe it's 2/3, maybe it's 90%, maybe whatever, but whatever it is, that's what it is.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so that completes item 5A.
Thank you, Commission. I can't hear you anymore, but thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
The next item of business, and Attorney Branch, you're welcome to stay. I think that you have concluded. We appreciate your help and support on coming up with the way ahead, and you're certainly welcome to stick around and
If
Help
you
us
don't
out.
need me, I will sign off, and I'm going to shoot an email to Jim just with sort of summarizing what my understanding of the order.
Okay,
get-
and
to get
before
him
you
started.
sign off, Mark, I'll just mention to the commission to put the date March 11th, I think it is, and
Yes,
on your calendars, that is going to be the next session. I think March 11th is a Saturday. It's
Correct.
probably the better part of a Saturday is the Connecticut Bar Association training that I attended 2 years ago. I thought it was excellent. Attorney Branch has a big role to play in getting that to us, but we as a commission do have requirements going forward that we receive training. This might not make all those wickets, but it will certainly help you understand the roles, responsibilities, and all those things associated with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I highly recommend, if you can, take the time to attend that.
and it will be, as 2 years ago, it will be virtual. It used to be held at Wesleyan, and we had to cap it at 250 because even with an overflow room, that was all the room we had. 2 years ago, we had 650 signed up for it. And we responded to over 150 questions during that session. So it's a packed day covering public hearing procedures, non-conforming uses, zoning regulation adoption, plan of development, every topic you've ever faced or ever will. And the book is a few hundred pages. And as usual, the Bar Association subsidizes this. So basically, I forget, the fee is probably going to be about 25 or 30 bucks like last time. And that's just the printing cost of the book. The printing and mailing of the book is it. Everything else we cover. So definitely March 11th, Saturday, put on your calendar. Thank you for mentioning that, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, and we have money in the budget to support paying for the training, so it'll be no cost to any of the commission members that attend that. So,
All right, have a happy Thanksgiving all. We'll talk to you
same to
soon.
you, Attorney Branch.
too.
All righty. And
Thanks
by the
for
way,
coming.
I put January 23rd on my calendar just in case, if need be. I've reserved
Okay.
that for you.
Thank you.
All righty. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Next item up is the request for proposals for the upcoming plan of conservation and development. And that is this document here that I put up. I've sent that out to everybody. At this point, I was looking for feedback on. So this area down here, public input is desired to understand what type of housing people in Andover are looking for, whether the town should be encouraging growth, what type of growth the town desires, and what the taxpayers are willing to pay a little more in taxes to achieve, among other things. Those were some questions that I think the long-term planning committee asked back in 2018. This will be about 5 years later, but I think that it would be good to get some input from the folks from the town of Andover. And so at this point, my question for the commission is, are there any other specific items that we should include in this request for proposal for soliciting help to put that document together?
Ed, I don't have any suggestions at this time, but I did notice in the first or second paragraph there, when you talk about bids due by Wednesday. The date is missing. I think it's January 18th.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. And I hadn't worked the timeline out on this to work it backwards. My goal is to get this out by. Don't know what that was. That was
Dinner's ready.
That was the goal. Mid-December, so that, we can have, I think I put a
I think it says January 18th at the bottom.
January 18th, yeah,
Yeah.
so publication date 12/1. Thanks for pointing that out to me, Steve. I'll put an appropriate date back in there where I think, we can actually get it out. But one of the early weeks in December is what I'm shooting for, assuming that I can work with Eric to get this out and get a reasonable turnaround where, I think it's a pretty considerable job. Might take a little prep work on somebody's part to put in a bid for that. So
Mhm.
thanks for the hint that I need to fill in that blank. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I think that wraps up the plan of conservation and development. Next item up was the accessory apartments. And so I had a couple of questions for the commission to discuss, and we'll talk about the first item more in just a minute. I went through the definitions. Should we use net or gross floor area? Our current regulations use gross floor area. The state recommendation had net floor area. And we'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. My assumption is whatever we pick, probably what would happen is, at least when I've experienced these, I go to the assessor's cards that have both a net floor area and a gross floor area listed. I don't know if those are based on our definitions or not, quite honestly. But I think that would be the most likely source of information that, it's coming from the town. And we would probably, if the card says X number of square feet, we probably ought to go with that. That's the easiest, most consistent thing that we can do there. Our current regulations talk about an accessory apartment of between at least 250 square feet up to 800 square feet. And I think the feedback I've gotten from Attorney Branch is that it is no longer legal for us to specify the minimum size of a house. And so with that in mind, I figured we should not have a minimum size for an accessory apartment. If the accessory apartment meets the requirements that it has a kitchen area, sanitation facilities, and living space, and you can do that in 100 square feet, more power to you. You're going to be deciding, does anybody want to come in and rent that or whatever. Right now, we should determine a maximum size. Our regulations are 800 square feet. I'm okay with that. State recommended 1,000. We'll talk about that a little bit more going through. I think these numbers rarely come into play because both the state and our current regulations talk about either 30% or 33% of the floor space of the house. And so if you have 1,000 square foot house, that would give you a maximum accessory apartment size of 330 square feet. So you never get close to that. You would have to have a 3,000 square foot house to come up with the 1,000 square foot accessory apartment. And then the last question I had is, do we care about the minimum lot size outside of the Lake District? You know, when we opted out because we were concerned about the quality of the water quality of the lake with the small lots and the septic and all that. I have recently discovered after some discussions with Jim on 12 Center Street and I went looking back at the lots there are some very small lots in the town center area. In fact, there's a house on a lot, at least according to our town records, where the lot is 0.08 acres in size. Do we want to put further restrictions on an accessory apartment in that area, or do we want to allow the health district, you know, if it complies with the health requirements, so be it. And so those are some things to consider as we have a little conversation about that now. This just compares a little bit. Our regulations between 250 and 800 square feet or less than 33% of the gross floor area of the single family dwelling. The state said not less than 30% of the net floor area or 1,000 square feet, whichever is smaller, whichever is less. I think most accessory apartments would be less than 800 square feet. I think that, you know, for an accessory apartment, 800 square feet, if you had that, that would be a pretty good size apartment. You know, anybody on the commission got any thoughts on that one way or the other?
My thought is that 800 square feet is like a 1-bedroom apartment. If you're going to go out and look for apartments in an apartment building, that's not a very big thing. I would think that you'd want to allow the 800 and figure it's going to be at least that size.
Okay.
Our our in-law apartment on our house is 800 square feet and it's not real big.
You know what your square footage is on your house, Sam?
The rest of the house, it's about between 24 and 2,600.
Okay, so if we took, you know, 1/3 of the 2,400, that would give you the 800.
Yeah.
And so that even if we went with the 1,000 square feet, if you took the third of yours, and yours is a good size house,
Yeah.
that would limit you right now to
Right.
About 800 square feet. And I
That's-
think
we went to the max.
yep,
No,
and most people do. And that's okay. We just have to make sure that we're happy with it. But my sense would be we could copy the state things in
Yeah,
there
state's good.
verbatim. Certainly can't, nobody can fault us for using the words that the state provided.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that approach. And that gives you the flexibility to go to 1,000 square feet.
Yep, it does. If you had a 3,000 square foot house.
Right.
Our next little bullet point here says it must contain kitchen, sanitary facilities, and living quarters.
Mhm.
And on the state recommendation, has cooking facilities. I liked what we have now better
Yeah.
because I don't know about you, but I had cooking facilities in my college dorm room.
Yeah.
We didn't have microwaves back there. We had hot pots. And so I was cooking hot dogs and cooking soup. And I think what we really want is a small kitchen.
Mhm.
And so my recommendation would be to leave the words that we got there.
How do we define that, though? Does it have to have a sink and a cooktop, or how do we define kitchen?
I could certainly add some words in there that further define it, that it has a kitchen sink and refrigerator, stove. I don't know. What's everybody think about that?
I think the public health code might address that.
Yeah, check into that.
Can you check that for me, Jim? Because
Absolutely.
I have a hard time working my way through the public health stuff there.
Jed, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay, so two things. One, you asked initially whether the assessor's card lists net or gross floor area. The assessor's card lists essentially floor area derived by outside dimensions. So that is gross floor area. So that's one piece of information. The second thing is kind of one of the biggest, if your goal in this is to provide affordable housing, the first thing you can do to make it affordable is to make it relatively small. Houses scale and cost with size. So, but when they get super small, they get expensive again, which is why the original regulations had that size limit, because 250 square feet is about the smallest size you could build without going to specialty, super narrow kitchen stoves and things of that nature. So that was why you as a commission may choose to change that, but that was the rationale for it. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
I think Eric, just hit on a good point. We've got, everybody sees on TV now these tiny houses. If you built something like that, would that qualify as an accessory dwelling?
So interesting that, well, there's a line in our affordable housing plan. And it talks about housing facilities for care providers. And it's talking about the little trailers that you can bring in.
Mhm.
And while I didn't know it, I bet because we didn't opt out of that, we fit under that category that somebody can bring a little trailer in if it's for, a caregiver.
Mhm.
Haven't heard about that. I think the tiny house would be an appropriate accessory dwelling unit. Nobody says it has to be on top of a garage or any of that kind of thing. That absolutely essential, or essential to and consistent with the goal of increasing affordable housing for the young folks. My son, when he first started working, lived in a accessory dwelling unit. Probably wasn't called that. It was called a modified garage at that point in time. And if you think back, Fonzie on Happy Days lived in an accessory apartment, and it probably was a room over a garage or something. But no, I think the tiny house thing, if somebody wanted to build that, that would be a great use of that. And so good point.
But then the 250, is that, should we lower that number?
I think we should and I'll check with Attorney Branch. I didn't want to hold him around for this discussion here. I think he would tell us that putting a minimum square footage in this is illegal.
Mhm.
Our regulations right now, for the reasons that Eric mentioned earlier, specify a minimum square footage for a house of 500 square feet. We've been told that that is no longer legal. I don't know if it was legal when we put it in there or not, but it's not legal now. And so my thought is, if you can't have a minimum size for a house, you probably can't have a minimum size for an accessory apartment. So I'm going to go continue on down to the next one here. Our regulations say site plan for an internal accessory apartment special permit for detached. The state is going, they want to make this easy. It's as of right site plan approval. And I'm okay with that for these things. I think, when you talk about the room over the garage or the tiny house or any of that, I'm okay with doing that and making that easy, which the state is trying to force us to. We're not doing a very good job of getting that affordable housing in town. We need more of it, and this would help us do that. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you, Chad. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. I talked about parking spots. We say one additional parking space for a total of 3 with a common driveway.
Mhm.
Jim had mentioned to me, well, what about if you're already on a common driveway and you put the accessory dwelling unit? I think with, accessory apartment, my understanding of a common driveway is not a shared driveway. It's common, whoever's in the accessory apartment parks next to your garage, just like you do. And you don't necessarily have anything else going there. The state talks about 1 additional parking space for the accessory apartment, kind of same as us. The state talks about authorized for any lot that contains a single family dwelling. Right now, our size is 60,000 square feet. And this size is really the thing that got me wanting to make the change, because we did turn down an apartment on a guy who was a 40,000 square foot lot. I was going to go down. I thought it was easy to say, okay, we go down to a 40,000 square foot. And then Jim mentioned somebody might be putting in an application for a lot that's a little less than an acre. And that's when I started looking at what is over in the town center area. And there's some smaller ones here. But in an effort to increase the affordable housing, I'm sort of okay with any lot that can get the health code to pass.
Mhm.
If you've got a little lot and you want to fill it up with something else and you meet the setback requirements and you meet the percentage of lot that's covered, okay. If you meet all those other wickets, I can live without a size requirement. So
I have a question to do with, we opted out of the part of this because of the lot sizes down at the lake being small, but those lots probably wouldn't meet the requirements of the setback and the space on the lot for that. So did we really need to do that opting out? It seems like the other requirements wouldn't have been met, so.
my desire to opt out in the Lake District was, I don't think the health district has the oomph in their regulations to protect the lake. They do pretty much a paperwork review of a septic system and don't get into whether it's functioning or any of that kind of stuff. And because I couldn't convince myself that the health code would protect the lake, chose to opt out. And that was, Attorney Brant's, said we should opt out for a number of reasons,
Okay.
that being only one of them. And so we did. I did not know about these little lots over in the town center until within the last month or so.
Right.
And so I thought, the smallest lot we had outside the Lake District was probably an acre.
No, it's probably smaller in some other places too.
Yep, and if there are, I'm not aware of it, but I only stumbled into these because I was looking after I heard that 12 Center Street was not an acre lot.
Mhm.
But anyhow,
Have I missed
Somebody else has-
when you were going through this list? The town sanitarian certified, is that septic? Or what is that for?
that is the Eastern Highlands Health District has to certify the septic plan. Normally for building a accessory apartment, they're not going to put in another septic system. They're just going to tap in, whether
Mhm.
it's internal to the house or external, they'll just tap into the existing septic system, which is adding an extra bedroom capability
Mhm.
in all that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so. Whoop. So Eric, so I'm going to go out of sequence here. This is from the assessor's card for my house. And I think, I've got not a huge house, and, for living space, it lists that I got about 1,800 square feet. And that's probably pretty close. So I think this is what equates to net area.
Mhm.
If I look at the gross area, which, they have it listed as gross area here, I got over 6,000 square feet. And that's because I got, I've got an unfinished basement. I've got my attic. I don't think any of it's got more than the 7-foot ceiling up there that's required to make it count as living space. But, so I got some attic, I got some basement, I got some, porch, and I got a bunch of decking, and that. So it makes a difference whether we're talking
Mhm.
net or gross.
Wow.
Then in section 24 of our regs, we've got a definition of gross floor area. And it says floor area shall include basements, with some restrictions there, attic space, more than 7.5 feet, roof, porches, breezeways, mezzanines. And it's got garages in here. So anyhow, that's how that's what comes up with that big number that I've got on my card. In section 11, which discusses sizes of lots and setbacks and all that stuff, it has this line in here: in computing gross floor area, customary rooms such as hallways, stairways, and closets shall be included. The following shall not be included. And here's a bunch of stuff that were included on that definition from section 24. So there's a little inconsistency in our regulations there. And then if you look in section 24 about the net floor area, it's very consistent with what's in section 11 for the gross floor area. And so while I'm not looking to change section 11 at this point, if we changed in the regulation on accessory apartments to net floor area, which is the words that the state uses, that gets rid of all these things like garages, and stuff that shouldn't be included there. So anyhow, that would be my recommendation, to go back to the net floor area, where if we use the net floor area that our definitions say works, and it's consistent with section 11 of our regulations. So I've been wrestling with that a little bit there. One more thing that Jim and I have kicked around a little bit, just to be, I can see it coming up, where it says the gross floor area of accessory units shall be between 800 square feet, between 250 and 800, and shall be less than 33% of the gross floor area of the single family dwelling. And so the next question I have would be, let's say that the single family dwelling this box here, or is it this whole box here? And so when you take, if the whole thing is 1,000 square feet, you take a third of it, that gives you 333 square feet here, 666 square feet there, and that would be that. Or if you looked at 1/3 of the 666, now you're down to a really tiny room. And I think leaving the latitude to make that as big as possible makes sense. So anyhow, I don't know. I just, Jim and I are, there's always going to be things that the regulations don't cover. And that's why we have the commission. We can take a look. Does it comply with our regulations? More or less, yes, no, and make sense and all that kind of stuff. But that was one of the other gotchas I got. So anyhow, from my assessor's card, if we took 1/3 of the 6,000 square feet, I could have a 2,000 square foot accessory apartment. Or if I took 1/3 of the 1,800, that's 540. A little on the small side, but my house isn't a huge one either. Jim and I talked about, so a guy puts in a 3-car garage, and the 3-car garage built over it has, lots of square footage. How's he going to get his accessory apartment in there? Maybe if he wants an accessory apartment, he doesn't get to have a 3-car garage. He gets a 2-car garage if he wants to use the whole upstairs. Or if he has the roof slope down, takes it off, you can do that. But we're going to come through a bunch of issues that we can't foresee, can't put them in the regulations, and we'll deal with those at the time comes. So after listening to any of that, do folks think I'm on the right track, off the right track? Did I bet you I didn't even send changes to this section out to anybody. I sent you a lot of stuff to read, but probably not this one. Okay, we'll hold that thought for a minute. I'm going to show you one more thing before we close this out. And that's that definition of lot frontage, as we had talked about. And in section 5.5.7.6, and I forget what this is. It's in the open space and development densities. Frontage means frontage on a public street that either exists currently or is proposed as part of the subdivision. And I was originally, back when we were talking about frontage, I was just going to include that in the definition section and make that our definitions. As I looked online, Googling definitions of frontage, there was, one little caveat that I thought was worth putting in. And it talked about if you got a corner lot, your frontage can include that distance on both roads. I guess there could be a rear lot. There could be a lot where you have a road on the front and you have a road on the back. And then maybe you only got half the desired frontage if we were to do that. Not sure. Anybody got any thoughts on the frontage definition?
Jed, I'm a little unclear. Are you suggesting that frontage be measured at the street line? And do we have a definition of street line? Is it the edge of the property measured?
We don't, and so I went back to Pine Ridge.
Yep.
And on that particular lot, we had to go the distance along the street to get the required frontage for the rear lots. Because it added a little curvature. And at the time we were discussing it, we said that was okay. So if we were to have taken the distance perpendicular to the driveway sides and measured across, he would not have had the required frontage. So that's why we put distance along the public street, which is consistent with on a public street here. That doesn't mean necessarily back where the right of way is, because I did not want to get into where is the right of way. We have a hard time figuring out how wide's the right of way on a bunch of streets. I figured I'd make it easy. We measured along the street, And if you got the required frontage, you're good to go. We can make it different than that, but that was my thought. Is that cleared up at all, Jim?
I'm thinking it through. So, I mean, there's only a difference if there's a radius in the road.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's clear.
Okay, and maybe down here, we should specify frontage on a corner lot may contain distance along the street on multiple sides of the lot. I'm not sure we want to allow that guy who, right now, there's a lot or two on Lake Road and Lakeside Drive that have frontage on both.
Mhm.
We probably don't want to have half the frontage. We probably want all the frontage on one street. Or we can cross out the corner too. You either got it on the front of your lot or you don't. I can go either way. I just reviewed other definitions of frontage and saw that was included in it.
I like your proposed definition as is.
Okay, anybody else have thought? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to include this definition in that section 24 that we're going to take to public hearing on January 23rd. Jim, I'll get this, put that into the change so you can send it out to everybody else soon to get the municipality review. And then nothing means that we can't, we can change these definitions at the meeting where we go to approve them at, which is going to be on hopefully the 23rd. And that'd be that. Okay.
January 23rd, you're talking.
Yep.
Jed, once again, can I pipe in?
You can.
Okay, two things. One, since we have changed our regulations from R40 to the ARD design, one of the options you could have is set the minimum lot size to allow an accessory dwelling unit as that's allowed under the conservation subdivision regulations, which would be a 30,000 square foot lot. So that would be one option. That gets you beyond the problem you have of the existing lots not qualifying, yet still putting some kind of minimum on it. The second thing is I put in the chat box a picture of one of the accessory dwelling units that's put out by Lindahl Cedar Homes. So you can see kind of the style and what you can do in a really small accessory dwelling unit. That's it, just informational, and I'll shut up again.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. It's good to have you here, Eric, and I appreciate all of that. So bear with me. I'm getting to the end here. So anyhow, this you have not seen. I will send it out soon. I thought I already sent out too much stuff for this one. But as we go down, it's really pretty easy. I crossed out the words "and to provide for the needs of the elderly." When we started out, that's what we were looking at for accessory apartments. I think, now it's just as much for the new kids starting out as it is for the elderly. And so I just, to fulfill an increasing need for smaller affordable housing units. So, so I thought that was pretty easy to get through. Down here, we put site plan review and standards Right now it's for units located within the principal dwelling or detached from the principal dwelling. Either way, that's consistent with the state. I sometimes ask myself if the accessory dwelling unit is going to be internal to a dwelling, why does it even need to come to the commission? And I don't have a good answer for that. I just wasn't willing to have it not come to the commission for site plan review yet. Maybe at some point in time we get there, but it seemed consistent with the state that it would come to the commission for site plan review, and that would be that. I put the setback requirements of section 11.2. Space requirements are satisfied for the accessory apartment. I did that because that eliminated the discussion of that minimum lot size in there being 60,000 square feet and having to wrestle with that. If we put the setback requirements now that's no longer applicable. Although we can, just like we have for the Lake District, says 120,000 square feet, as Eric was mentioning, we could specify a lot of at least 30,000 square feet right there in the introductory section. I changed gross to net. I thought that was consistent with what we were looking. No larger than 800 square feet and shall be no larger than 33% of the net floor area. So I think we had talked maybe about making that 1,000. I can change that. I think that was the intention of the commission there, is to go up to 1,000 if you had a big enough house to allow that. And I'll make that change. In addition, the accessory apartment shall not alter the basic character of the dwelling as a single-family residence consistent with the character of the surrounding buildings. It does not distract from the rural characteristics of the area. I have a hard time figuring out what would distract from the rural characteristics of the area, but certainly, if somebody had the Fred Flintstone house or something that I've seen out in Los Angeles, that might not be in keeping with the rural characteristics of the town. So that's fairly standard verbiage there, but it makes the accessory apartment should blend in with the neighborhood, not be something. I don't know. I guess we'll recognize it when we see it, and that's why the commission. This is about the only thing that the commission really gets to decide, is whether or not it's consistent with the character of the rural characteristic of the town. Then I got rid of all the special permit stuff. So what I'd like to do, and Jim, did we goof up by me not having an application for this one here?
Yes.
No, there you go. Okay, so how do we get out of that so that we can keep we could meet and if we can't, that's fine. I was just hoping to include this with the public hearing on January 23rd as well. But if we can't do it, we'll just do another public hearing sometime after that when we do everything.
I can't think of a way offhand.
Okay, so I will not, so I will send this out to everybody to take a look at after I make a couple changes to it. But I will not plan on doing that at the January 23rd meeting. I'll figure out, there's more changes that we can make, and it'll make for another public hearing later on down the road. I want to make sure that we go just as fast as possible to get, Eric's changes in there to support the community center. So that will be that. That's all I wanted to talk about for accessory apartments.
Dad, I have a couple questions.
Yep, go ahead, Leanne.
I guess I'm still unclear about how much we can actually change from what the state said and what we're saying about minimum size of these apartments. It's been mentioned anywhere from 250 square feet to 800 square feet. And I guess I'm not clear as to what we can do and what we're saying we might want to do.
Okay, so when we opted out, the state gave us lots of guidance that they hoped would turn into regulations on accessory apartments.
Hmm.
There was one small portion of that we didn't like. But when we chose to opt out because of that, those small lots in the Lake District, the process opted us out from all the state guidance. So we do not need to comply with any of the state recommendations.
Okay.
I was not satisfied with the fact that currently, at least I and the commission, at least at one point, determined that somebody on a 1 acre lot couldn't put in an accessory apartment. And I was hoping to change our regulations so that that issue was not in there. If the state has some recommendations that are better than what we have, that we like better, that gives us an opportunity to change it. If we wanted to have a minimum square foot size for an accessory apartment, which we currently have 250 square feet, I would have to get feedback from Attorney Branch on my thought is that is no longer legal, but I could get his cut on that if we wanted to do that.
I mean, any minimum is no longer legal?
Correct.
Okay. So are we putting a percent or a figure in here, or are we just not doing anything with it right now?
We are going to do both. We will use either 800 or 1,000, and I thought the consensus from the commission was 1,000.
As a minimum?
And that would be a maximum.
Max, okay.
And the other size thing is 33% of 1/3 of the net principal dwelling square footage.
Uh-huh.
And so again, this gets us, if you had a 2,000 square foot house, 33% would be 666 square foot accessory apartment, which is smaller than 1,000. So your maximum size would be 666 square feet. It would be the smaller
so
of those two
that-
things.
We're saying that is a percent, and we're also saying that 1,000 square feet is the maximum?
Yes. So you've got a maximum of 33% of your existing square footage or 1,000 feet, whichever is smaller.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can you do the
Just not-
reverse? So I have 1,000 square foot house. If we're talking net dimensions, I have basically 1,000 square foot house. Can I build a 3,000 square foot house on it and just claim my house as the accessory dwelling unit?
I'm sure you could. Yep, that'd be great news for the town. I got no problem with that.
Okay.
I had another question. It sounds like what Eric is saying about, on number 4. It starts out with the words require setbacks. Sorry, Eric, were you through?
Yep.
Okay. It's, it says require setbacks, lot size, and building frontage less than or equal to that which is required for the principal dwelling, comma, and require lot coverage greater than or equal to that which is required for the principal dwelling. So does require lot coverage mean that you could build an accessory dwelling larger than your principal dwelling?
No.
That's not what we just said, but
What Eric was saying is he would rebuild to make the principal dwelling 3,000 square feet. making his current house, which is 1,000 square feet, the accessory apartment.
Okay,
So he was building out, which sort of makes sense to me. In fact, I've seen that done on Columbia Lake. There was a lot as I drive up Erdoney Road, and it had the initial house they turned into, well, initially it was an apartment over a 3-car garage. And I thought that was a plenty big house. And they built this huge house on there. Now, I haven't looked at Columbia's accessory apartment regulations, but they did exactly what Eric was just suggesting. Any other questions on the accessory apartments? And again, we won't tackle those on this next go around. We'll hold those in abeyance, but that's, I want to start putting those in the pile to do on a non-urgent basis there going forward. And we'll do it right. I'll get the application in there so that we can, follow the rules. Okay, I am going to try. Everybody see the town website now? Okay.
Yes.
Does everybody see the minutes from September 19th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, these were revised from what we had initially posted on our website. But I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 19th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on these minutes? And I probably didn't send those out to you either, so I don't know if everybody found them online. We not all that new, but anyhow, does anybody have any comments on the meeting minutes? And I've got 3. So Carol Ann, the comments are under the alternates. In addition to Ann Blanchard, Kevin Arneson attended that meeting. Under item 5 was really new business. Item 6 was old business. And down here where it says Jed Larson stated it is mixed use, I actually stated it was zoned R60. Now, R60 isn't really what the zone is. The zone is actually the ARD. But when I looked at the video, because I knew I didn't say it was mixed use, I said it was R60, so that's what the minutes should reflect. And that was all the comments I had on that. Anybody else have any comments? Hearing none?
I have a question. I wasn't there, but it appears that you must have seated an alternate that day.
I did seat an alternate that day. And the alternate, I think, was Ann Blanchard. Is that correct, Ann?
Yes, it was.
Yep. So thank you, Susan. That we should also include that Ann Blanchard was seated. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Leanne,
I abstain. I was absent.
and Susan was absent,
Right.
but I vote aye. So the motion passes 302 with with Leanne and Hutchinson and Susan England abstaining. And then just for your information, Carol Ann, normally we have seen at the end of the meeting minutes, it says submitted by, and then your name, so we know who's on there. Since it's a little, since we didn't have that, and I'm not gonna put somebody else's name in there, saying that it's signed by them when they're not here. That's just for your information going forward. I'd like to have, the minutes acknowledging that they're by you.
Okay, thank you.
That gets us up to the most recent meeting, which was Monday, October 17th. And I will make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the planning and zoning meeting on Monday, October 17th, as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any comments on these minutes? And up in the, under members present, we should have alternates present. And Ann Blanchard, I think you were in attendance at that meeting, were you not?
Yes, I was, but I was not seated.
Right. So you were there but not seated because we had the full commission. But we should still acknowledge your presence at the meeting. And then one typo here on page 2, Jed Larson presented the letter, not ladder. And that was all I had. Any other members have any other comments on the meeting minutes?
Jed, under the public speak, should we mention that Jerry submitted a letter as well? It doesn't. Oh, it does say that for taking on the
Yeah.
Board of Education's letter. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Ann,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Susan,
I abstained because I was not there.
and I vote aye as well. Motion passes 401 with Susan England abstaining. Next up, Jim, is correspondence.
Done.
None. Okay. Administrative reports.
Enforcement action, I am working with Mr. Barnett on Route 6 to both clean up his property, which is an ongoing activity, as well as an order was issued to vacate a trailer on the property where there was a number of occupants And I'm working with the health department on that to get those folks out of there in a timely fashion. Other than that, I do need to work with Dennis O'Brien, the town attorney, on a follow-up on a citation that was issued a few months back with an ongoing fines. Other than that, it's about all I have right now. Hopefully, I do have some other enforcement actions to take. Hopefully, I'll have more time in the next month or two.
Okay. Now, is the action you're taking on the gravel pit, that's an enforcement action, is it not?
It is.
Okay. And as I looked on the website, I did not find your letter to Mr. Genovese under the enforcement actions. I did see your letter to Mr. Barnett.
Okay, I can get that on there.
Yep. Anything else under your administrative report, Jim?
No.
Okay.
Jed,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Jim, on the Center Street property, I noticed that there's a big drop off into the foundation area now, since they removed the
is.
platform. So I'm wondering, do we have any requirements that they put fencing around there, or at least tape mark off the area? So, I'm worried that, kids could fall into there, or somebody, can get hurt.
I'm pretty certain it's a building code issue. I will bring it to the attention of the building enforcement officer. I can ask him. That should. I have been trying to keep an eye on that. I haven't been there in a while. It's not great. I did expect him to move forward with an application to build there, but he hasn't as of yet. I will take a look at that. That shouldn't be a problem to take care of,
Great, thank
one
you.
way or the other.
Good point,
Okay.
Steve. Thanks for bringing that up. The inland wetlands liaison, we did not have a meeting last month, so therefore there is nothing to report. Moving on to item 10, public speak. Hearing none, I'll go, next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, December 19th.
Jed, sorry, I'm late. Can I just poke in one thing again?
You bet.
You keep talking about there's no lower limit on the building size.
Yep.
There is a limit, but it's only the limit applied by the health code, which I think works out to somewhere around 150 square feet, something like that.
Okay.
That's what the state says is the minimum.
And that's pretty minimal. And I think as we were struggling to get the recording going at the start, I had the very first thing on my note list to welcome Carol Ann as our new board clerk. And I think in our enthusiasm to get the recording going, I missed right over that, but it's nice to have you with us, Carol Ann. And
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
if look at the last meeting minutes as a good example of the kind of things to put in the meeting. It's not going to be a regurgitation of everything we do. The clerks have pretty much done a good job of getting what's important and putting it in there.
You mean I
if you have
can't
any
refer?
question as we go along, ask Jim or me, and we'll be happy to help make you as successful as we can.
Thank you. You mean I can't refer to the Fonz apartment in the minutes?
Well, you can. I thought that was pretty clever. Fonzie was ahead of his time.
That's right.
So many things. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Caroline, I will work with you on filing them. The filing the charter minutes is a little different, because you're replacing, and we'll do whatever the town clerk wants, quite honestly. Very
Okay,
particular.
we'll talk
about
on that. Thank you.
How that would be handled. I will
Thank you.
defer to her. Thank you.
Okay.
So the last order of business is for everybody to have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and
Mhm.
we'll see you next month, just before Christmas. So thank you all for attending and participating and giving feedback and all that. And I'll make a motion to adjourn. Come on,
Second.
Steve, don't break your record now.
Second.
Okay.
Um,
Anybody
Thank you. Happy
opposed?
Thanksgiving.
Yep. Motion passes 5-0-0. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Okay, good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.